What's up, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim, and I have a brand new video for you. Welcome to part 9 of What If Deku Could Use Haki. I wanted to stop by and say hello, and please sit back, relax, enjoy yourselves, because this is gonna be a fun ride. Let's begin! Everything was still as the tension kept rising in the air. Midoriya just stared his opponent down without any remorse as he spoke. Well, what's it gonna be? He said as he narrowed his eyes. Shinzo was completely stiff. He couldn't move. Whenever he looked anywhere near Midoriya, he felt himself being choked. It was as if Midoriya's aura had wrapped itself around him. The purple-haired boy kept staring at the slowly approaching Midoriya until he felt another burning slap across his other cheek. I'm still waiting for an answer, the green-haired boy annoyingly said, before he proceeded to shove his opponent back. Shinzo lost his footing and landed on his back, still frightened by the mere presence of Midoriya. The green-haired boy just looked more annoyed to the point of being angry. His opponent looked just about ready to give up, and that just made him even more mad. I don't understand people like you. Do you expect that everything should be handed to you on a silver platter? That you don't need to work hard and earn it? Midoriya yelled. Shinzo didn't know how to react, for the green-haired boy suddenly began to lecture him. You're the one to blame for not being in the hero course. I, a quirkless person, made it here because I worked hard enough. It's not just me either. Everyone in the hero course worked themselves to death just to get to this point. So why shouldn't you do the same? Midoriya said as he kept staring down Shinzo. Shinzo just had his entire life flipped upside down. What the green-haired boy said was true. He didn't earn it. Everyone in the hero course had worked hard to earn their place, and the quirkless boy before him only stood as a manifestation of that hard work. Shinzo then clenched his fist as he stood up on his trembling legs. You're right. Now let me answer your question. I will fight, and I intend to win! Shinzo shouted as he raised his fists. Midoriya smiled upon hearing this, remembering not to answer any of Shinzo's questions. The crowd began to roar in excitement, for the fight seemed to begin for real now. Shinzo stared down his green-haired opponent, waiting for the right moment. Both teens were just quiet and still, until one of them acted. Shinzo began charging, determined to hit Midoriya in the face. The green-haired boy didn't even flinch, as he responded by throwing a punch of his own. His fist was covered with Haki as it crashed straight into Shinzo's face. The purple-haired boy didn't even get a chance to lay a single finger on his opponent before he fell to the ground and lost consciousness. The whole arena went silent until midnight announced. Shinzo is unable to continue. Midoriya advances to the second round. The audience let out a great cheer, despite the match being fairly uneventful, although it was still cool that it was finished with just one punch. Midoriya looked at the unconscious Shinzo in front of him and smiled. The purple-haired boy had been misguided up until now, but he could still become a great hero. Work hard, get stronger, then come and face me again, Midoriya muttered, hoping that Shinzo would somehow hear those words, even when unconscious. The other matches went on in one way or another. Todoroki ended his match instantly by freezing the entire stadium, looking more angry than before. Uraraka tried her hardest against Bakugo, but still ended up losing. Now it was time for the second round, and Midoriya was facing Todoroki immediately in the first match. The green-haired boy walked through the halls, slowly making his way down to the arena. He was undisturbed, until he sent someone around the corner with his observation Haki. Midoriya readied himself, thinking it was some sort of threat, but calmed himself a little when he saw who it was. From around the corner came a figure clad in fire, wearing a passive-aggressive expression. It was the number 2 hero, Endeavor. You're Midoriya, right? He asked. Midoriya was a little thrown off by this, but he didn't let it show as he answered, yeah. The flamed hero didn't change his expression as he continued to speak. You're pretty good, even though you're quirkless. Your next match is against my son. Make him use his flames. Midoriya got a little annoyed to hear this. Endeavor wasn't asking him anything. He was ordering him around. Shoto was made to surpass All Might, but he's being rebellious. He's rejecting the power that I gave him, and it's time for him to be taught a lesson, the flame hero said as he flared up a little. Midoriya was now angry. Not only did Endeavor order him around, but he also had the guts to treat his own son so poorly. Midoriya tried to contain his anger as he walked past the flame hero. You're so pathetic, he said, while his back was turned against Endeavor. The Flame Hero was angered upon hearing this, as he said, "What did you say, you brat?" Midoriya was still unfazed by this, as he responded, "Todoroki is not you, and he's not an object that you can force your agendas onto." Midoriya turned to face Endeavor once more. "I already told him he wouldn't win without using his flames, so know that if he does use them, you'll have no part in it. That alone will show just how much of a failure you are." After saying his piece, Midoriya walked away towards the fighting ground. Endeavor was furious upon hearing this, so much so that he possibly could burn the entire stadium to the ground. The Flame Hero was so angry that he readied himself to attack Midoriya from behind, but he stopped himself. It wasn't because he had calmed down, or had decided that it wasn't worth it. It was something else. The Flame Hero was frozen, feeling this overwhelming aura encompass and shake his very core. He almost didn't want to believe that this aura had come from Midoriya, because its sheer power reminded him of someone else. "You? How are you almost as strong as All Might?" he muttered as he watched the green-haired boy calmly walk away. Midoriya then made it to the fighting ground, where Todoroki was patiently waiting for him. The two teens stared each other down, each with a cold glare. This is what they've both been waiting for, to finally settle things. "Begin!" Midnight shouted, and so they did. Todoroki began by firing an ice attack at Midoriya. The green-haired boy responded by breaking the ice with a Haki-infused punch. Then came another ice attack, only to meet the same fate. This exchange continued for a while, always showing the same result. Rayleigh observed the match from afar, wearing a skeptical look. "It looks to me like they're evenly matched," a deflated All Might said. Rayleigh didn't break his gaze, as he responded, "They're both holding back. That Todoroki kid isn't using both sides of his quirk, and Midoriya isn't using the full extent of his Haki. But why is that?" All Might looked slightly shocked upon hearing this, until he realized it was true. Todoroki wasn't using his flames for some reason, and Midoriya was said to be capable of a lot more than just this. Rayleigh kept thinking and thinking, wondering what his student was trying to do. He inspected both competitors multiple times, until he finally found a flaw to Todoroki's approach. It was at this point that Rayleigh realized what Midoriya was doing, and it made him smile. "I see. He's tiring him out," the silver-haired geezer said. All Might looked at him in confusion as he asked, "What do you mean?" Rayleigh turned his head towards his blonde companion as he began to explain. "Midoriya entered the ring with a plan. He found Todoroki's weakness, which is that he gets frostbite by using his ice too much. Midoriya is stalling the match until his opponent can continue, because he knows that his defense and endurance is superior to Todoroki's." All Might was shocked upon hearing this, for he hadn't even realized it yet. This only proved one thing. Midoriya was a competent fighter that always seemed to be in control of the situation. "Well, he might be after something else," Rayleigh said, as he turned his gaze back to the match. All Might was once again confused. For what could Midoriya possibly be after besides victory? The teens continued their long exchange of ice and destruction, until it slowly stopped. Todoroki was reaching his limits, for he was already trembling from the cold. Midoriya just stared him down with a cold glare as he asked, "Well, Brain Freeze, will you use your flames already, or are you just gonna forfeit?" Todoroki was annoyed upon hearing this, as he bellowed, "Did my father talk you into this?" Midoriya was still unfazed as he answered, "He tried to order me, but I told him to shove it. I'm here on my own accord, to tell you you're an idiot. What's the point of holding back if it makes you lose?" Todoroki was even angrier now as he roared, "What about you? Aren't you holding back as well?" Midoriya was as calm as ever as he answered, "Yeah, but why would I burn the forest down when hunting a rabbit?" This sentence shook Todoroki. What Midoriya meant was that he could easily end this match whenever he wanted. But he chose to hold back and do this. The bicolored teen was more angry than ever before as he shot another ice barrage at Midoriya. "You won't make this easy." "How typical," the green-haired boy said before he jumped to avoid the attack. He then advanced upon Todoroki, and the bicolored teen was too frozen to avoid in time. Midoriya closed the gap between himself and Todoroki before he delivered a Haki-infused punch to his gut. The ice user was thrown back before he crashed and slid across the ground. "Wake up, Todoroki! It's your damned quirk, not his! Use it to become the hero that you want to be, not the weapon he wants!" Midoriya shouted. getting so livid that weaker waves and pulses of his spirit shot out from him. Todoroki didn't know how to react to this, for Midoriya's words had brought back memories. He remembered all the things his mother used to say to him, things that he thought he had forgotten. It was at that moment that the bicolored teen realized something. Midoriya was right. It's his quirk, and he's not gonna let his father decide his destiny. As that last thought entered the teen's mind, steam was emitting from his left side. It grew more and more intense, until a wild burst of flame formed itself. The ice that had formed onto his body had melted away as he shouted, "This is my power, and I'll use it to become my own type of hero." Rayleigh smiled even more upon witnessing this advancement, for his hunch had been correct. This is what Midoriya was after. The green-haired boy smiled broadly as his opponent spoke up. "Let's finish this, Midoriya," which was answered by Midoriya raising his fists and roaring back, "With pleasure, Todoroki!" The two teens then readied their attacks. Midoriya covered both his arms and legs with Haki before charging into battle with observation into high gear. Meanwhile, Todoroki was firing an abundance of ice while also shooting his flames. The two finally clashed, not holding anything back. Midoriya kept charging towards his opponent, but was quickly engulfed by the flames. He kept pushing, and so did his bicolored opponent. Soon the ring was engulfed by a massive explosion that was then followed by a powerful wave. Few knew what this wave was, but soon a few spectators began to pass out. Then it slowly disappeared. The dust cleared ever so slowly, only to reveal one single man standing. It was Midoriya, and he barely had a single scratch on him. Everyone was frozen in shock, even more so when they saw that Todoroki was unconscious and buried into the wall. Todoroki is out of bounds. Midoriya advances to the third round, midnight announced, and the crowds began to cheer and roar. Rayleigh knew what happened. Midoriya had used Conqueror's Haki at a level that was near its full strength, but it must have been a subconscious activation during the final clash. This, however, didn't make things any better, and so the silver-haired geezer was more angry than happy at his student. Endeavor was also watching the match, from beginning to end. He wanted to roar when his son had used his flames, but he couldn't. Midoriya's words were still ringing in the back of his head, and that was more than enough to stop him from doing what he wanted to do at that moment. Todoroki then woke up, only to find himself in the infirmary. He felt exhausted, both cold and burned, but he didn't get to think too much of it before someone spoke up. "Wakey wakey, brain freeze!" Todoroki was immediately brought to attention as he turned his head towards the person speaking. It was Midoriya. "Sleep well?" his opponent said, smiling. Todoroki looked as calm as ever as he asked, "What are you doing here?" Midoriya just smiled even more as he answered, "Just checking on you. That was a pretty big blast, you know." Todoroki looked a little amused as he heard this before he answered, "I know, and I should be congratulating you for your victory." Midoriya kept smiling as he answered, "You don't have to. Save it for when I win the festival instead." Midoriya laughed a little, which made Todoroki smile as he joined along in the laughter. The atmosphere was warm between the boys, as they were friendly and laughing together. Midoriya then stopped laughing before he spoke once more. "That was a good match. We should do it again sometime," he said, before he extended his fist towards Todoroki. The ice user looked at it in shock, as if some sort of alien from another planet, but he then gathered himself, before he gave Midoriya a fist bump while saying, "Yeah, definitely." Midoriya only chuckled a little before he began walking towards the door. He then stopped just short of it before he turned to Todoroki and said, "I thought you'd like to know. Almost our entire class was here earlier to check on you when you were asleep." Todoroki was shocked to hear this. He didn't expect anyone to be there, but apparently his entire class had been there to see him. The ice user smiled over the fact that his classmates had cared about him as he nodded towards Midoriya. The green-haired boy nodded back and was about to walk through the infirmary door when Todoroki spoke again. "Hey, Midoriya?" The green-haired boy turned around back to Todoroki. "I still don't believe you're quirkless." Midoriya was a little shocked to hear this, although he shouldn't have been. The green-haired boy hasn't done anything to prove that he is quirkless, and the events in the match didn't even help his case. However, Midoriya just shrugged it off as he smiled while saying, "You may believe what you want, Brain Freeze. It doesn't change anything." Todoroki was taken aback by this. He didn't expect this answer, but he quickly realized that it was true. Maybe Midoriya had a quirk, maybe he didn't. Either way, it didn't matter. He can still do the things that he does, stand up to powerful quirks. It doesn't matter if it's a quirk that makes him this powerful. Todoroki then smiled at his green-haired friend before he nodded. Midoriya smiled back, and he left the infirmary. Midoriya began walking through the hallways, somewhat joyful. He was happy that Todoroki finally had been free of his shackles, and he wanted to fight him again someday. Midoriya kept walking through the hall until he suddenly stopped. He could feel something with his observation haki, that someone was watching him. He then used it to look closer, until he recognized who it was. Midoriya's good mood was suddenly ruined, as he muttered, "You watch me from a distance, and listen in on my conversations, or you're too scared to confront me," he said to himself, clearly irritated, before he continued his walk. The observer realized that he had somehow been found out. He didn't know why he decided to stalk Midoriya, but he couldn't shake that feeling every time he looked at him. He just started to tremble, and he didn't know why. Midoriya's aura was so intense and so powerful. How is he quirkless? Is he even human? The observer covered his face with one of his hands, as he muttered to himself, "What the hell are you, Deku?" And that's our video, so thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you've enjoyed it, I know I have. Now, there are a few more things I want to go over before the video ends. First, we have a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge of all kinds, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. So go check that out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details and information will be in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I want to extend an invitation to join the team. We only have one caveat: you must be 16 years or older to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Now, our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be, whether you're a fan or just looking to join our band of misfits. And with that, I'm gonna get out of here. So thank you all for watching, and please have a fantastic day.